Welcome, maximgruninart. Maxim here, and we're going to look at figure drawing and specifically the basics. This is just the theory and the explanation of the most simple, the most basic way of understanding how to draw or represent a figure as an image. So the proportions are measurements of agreeable quantity, so the head is like a little oval, and if it is smaller or bigger than its relationship to the rest of the body, then the figure will not look agreeable. It will be more of a grotesque or cartoony impression of a figure, which is okay. But let's see, what are the proportions, the measurements that are agreeable and satisfying for drawing the human figure? So the head is the most easy to understand portion of the body when it's simplified like this as a little oval. And then it is possible to start thinking of the rest of the body as being able to measure it with the head, the size of the head. So how many of these ovals, how many of these heads will fit into the total height of the figure? And for just a regular, most common human figure, adult human figure, male or female, they could be, males could be shorter than females could be shorter than males. It's a little bit of a give or take, but the total height is commonly measured. It commonly measures as maybe 8 or 7.5 heads in height. And so it is. The head becomes a kind of a mental landmark, a kind of a archetypal measurement point. How many heads will fit into this figure that I'm about to draw? So we can start thinking about the figure as a figure that could be measured really quickly using assessment of how many heads will fit into it. So if I am looking at a picture that I want to draw of a person, or if I'm looking at somebody in front of me that I'm sketching, or during live drawing session, it is possible to quickly understand and make mental notes for the self that I'm going to use this head, which is a kind of a little oval shape, as the measure point for all of the other parts of the figure. So this is a really basic way of understanding and drawing the figure that I learned when I first started learning about figure drawing or about figure proportions. So the next thing maybe is the spine, starting from the head. There's a neck, that's part of the spine. It's this curvy kind of line, bending or wavy line, and there's a rib cage there, which is also a kind of an oval. And how many heads would fit into that? Let's make this assessment, and it doesn't have to be exact, and it doesn't have to be always the same, always true. That the rib cage could be maybe 1.5 heads tall. Then the pelvis is the next large group of identifiable shapes within the body going down. That could be 1 or slightly more than 1 heads long. Upper leg within the human body is longer than the lower leg. And take a look at how many heads fit there. Make an assessment. All of this is give or take, and all of this information is gathered from observing and trying to draw a simple figure in this way. I'm writing a note, measure the arm, suggesting that you measure the arm in terms of how many heads will fit into the upper arm or the lower arm. Another aspect of proportions. Proportions are segments, portions, measures that are balanced well. They are believable. So if I am to draw a figure, if I create agreeable proportions, understand how to measure out elements of the figure, I am more likely to succeed in creating believable, understandable, satisfying figure impression. It really does help to understand the most basic making, visual making of the subject, of the figure. So proportions vary due to change in position, posture. What if the figure is seated or reclining? What if we cannot see the arm sideways and it's foreshortened? Maybe the arm is extending towards me, towards the artist. How do I measure that? I still use the head as the point of measurement. However, I account to the fact that not the entire body is stretched out and standing. The figure is seated, so its measurements have changed. The total measurement of the seated figure could be any measurement, and we can determine what it is by using again this main point of measurement, the head, to figure out what the length or the height of the figure is there. Let's go into stylization. What is stylization? What does this mean here in this video? What does it mean when I say stylization? Stylizing means simplifying a complex subject into simplest stylized shapes. Often in the basics, in the beginning, often the stylization is the most simple, the most basic. So anywhere between geometric shapes to very simple lines, to simple organic free shapes. So the head in the drawing is stylized to be a type of oval. And there is really no need to create a portrait or any other information other than to understand that, alright, I am learning about figure proportions. I am learning about basic drawing and basic understanding of the figure. So I will adopt a stylization method, a way to simplify the head as an oval. I can draw the spine and all of the skeletal structure of the figure just using these curvy lines, like a little bit more than a stick person. A stick person that we see in cartoons is even more simplified and often does not represent accurately the dynamics of human figure. You know, the spine is never straight. It's always on a curve. So we are just learning to stylize the spine a little more into a curvy line. And all of the bones are stylized to be curvy. And the head is used to measure roughly the proportions of the figure. And then ovals are used to indicate rib cage, pelvis. All of the major elements of human figure are broken down into these really simple, really stylized shapes and ways of showing the figure. Stylization, in this case, in what I am presenting, is a way to simplify, to learn to understand the figure and any of its parts, objects, as very simple geometric or semi-organic shapes. To be able to see the figure outside of its complexity is really helpful for learning. It makes it easier to start. So there is the oval, and then I just placed the elements of the head into an oval, and it is already changed from simple stylized shape to a bit more developed, a bit more visible, that's a face. So movement from simple to complex form is what I am going to be taking, that movement. But before I take the complex movement, let's just focus on the simplest, rudimentary, most basic ways to understand the figure and its various components. Palm of the hand and the foot represent a little bit of a challenge because they are composed with smaller information like fingers, digits. And how do we stylize the hand, the palm of the hand? Relatively simple. Well, think of a mitten, like a winter glove, a mitten without the fingers, just a really basic shape. And that's pretty much what I'm using, like a cylinder and another shape and another shape, and then this is the basic start for developing the complex structure of the palm of the hand. I am demonstrating where it would be going from the simpler representation. And for the beginners, and in the beginning of figure drawing exercises, it is not necessary to show the digits, just the previous shape, the mitten, the overall more general, more simple, more stylized version of the palm of the hand. Let's look at the drawing of the foot. So the lower leg then connects to the foot, and simple curved lines, they are the starting points of that structure. And then how can I simplify and stylize the heel portion of the foot? How can I stylize and simplify the sock, the main area of the foot? How do I connect it all together? Well, from really simple curvy lines and from simple geometric shapes, with really close observation, it is possible to study in visual terms, study through drawing, study through observation, all of the different components of this feature, and turn it into a more visible impression of the foot itself. And I am beginning to show that there's a circle or circular stylized simple shape attached to a curvy line. And then I am creating a mitten, a little bit more complex than a mitten type of shape, with a thumb and all of the digits combined together in just a free shape. And then I am cutting into this bigger shape and starting to develop fingers, digits, other information through using observation and through using linear drawing, and through applying a little bit of shading. So this is just to demonstrate to you which way this can move. And just studying a bit more detail. And there's no limit to how much studying you can do, and the more volume of studying, the more time you spend with these features, the more you learn about how to draw them. Stylizing and means simplifying. In this case, photographic and video technology makes more complex images than human organic capacity of the human hand to draw. Even though humans can create very realistic and photographic images, they can hardly compete with the speed, efficiency, and complexity of video and photography. So there's no need to do that. I'm going in the opposite direction. The drawing, the human representation, is its own unique way of expressing through through drawing and painting or through sculpture. So, let's think about the figure as if it was a wire sculpture, like a wire frame. What if I took a copper or metal or aluminum wire and bent it to, how would I bend it to show the figure? That's the simplifying of the figure. That's the stylization of the figure. Make it really simple, yet effective and expressive as a tool for showing what I'm wanting to show. I'm wanting to learn about effectively drawing and understanding why and how I can draw the figure. Then let's go and make an advanced stick person. Head is a little oval, a rib cage is an oval, pelvis is an oval, different position, different sizing of the ovals. The spine, the shoulders, the hips, and all of the bone structures are curvy lines. And how tall would I make these lines? How long? All of this could be assessed and measured with the measurement of the head, so that my wireframe person looks dynamic and proportionate and believable. So it's good to learn how to represent the figure accurately, believably. It is also good to learn how to create disproportionate figures, to be able to be versatile, to be able to observe differences and show them through my own drawing, through my own work. You can draw from pictures, from video, from live drawing. Just try and draw these wireframes. Draw many of them in different poses. What is the significance of the angle or the gesture? So at what angle is the head positioned when I start drawing it? It's not always the same. The figure has got lots of dynamic movement capacity, and so it moves on different angles. The figure is showing the gestures, the actions of what it's doing. What is the figure doing? It is making a dance move. It is stretching its hand forward. So how can I identify figure gesture? How can I show effectively what it's doing? By introducing the angles, the diagonals, the various bending movement on an angle for various parts of the figure. How does the figure animate? And use your head, use the head of the figure oval as a measurement, and use a very simple style of geometric or organic shapes, and begin to craft these a little bit more advanced stick persons. and start embedding, start including a little more of a dynamic angle to each part, to all of the components of the body. It is even better to over-exaggerate. The figure is so animated in reality or in the photograph, and my drawing needs to be expressive, and it needs to compel the viewer to believe that, oh, I am portraying this dance move, I am showing an expressive movement within the figure. So let's exaggerate, let's increase the angle on which the back is bent back or forward, elongate some components, darken the foreground elements. Be really keen in your observation. Look really closely and carefully where, how far the limb is going, and even exaggerate that motion. In this video, I am covering the mindset behind creating gesture drawings of the figure. This is the most basic thinking around the subject.